That's it. I had a PS2 vid plan, but then I continued playing the Minicopter Wii game. I got past the fan, but the game becomes very hard. I love the motion controls, although now that I think about it, the game kinda is goofy. From the weird missions to the music. The colorful graphics, it all screams, hey, we're having way too much fun making this. There's even a studio that is probably Arc System Works. This is a very silly game. I kinda love it for that. Meanwhile, for some reason, the internet has invented another term that isn't mid or slop, Goofy. I kinda like this term, as it gives off a certain sense of ridiculousness and isn't used as often as mid or slop, which are just weird insults at this point. We had terms like that including rocksoar or leet, etc. Internet slang is dumb, so I thought, what about Goofy Ahh video games? Are those a thing? Nobody aside from a Roblox YouTuber talked about them. So here are video games that I think fit the Goofy Ahh term, including this one, where you make hamburgers or shred top secret documents. A lot of the missions boil down to shoot this thing or grab this, but it's the creativity slash zaniness that does make the game more memorable than a lot of other titles from that era. I love this Minicopter game for what it is, even if the McDonald's level is the bane of my existence. That's how goofy this game is. I had a pretty similar experience with the PS2. The PlayStation 2 was a console I heard about from time to time. Look at all of these cool adult games for adults featuring adults. I was probably a contrarian or something because I defended the GameCube all of the day, bro! My first impression of the console was negative, and I think the gamer bros who praised the PS2 for its mature themes and realistic graphics are to blame for that. One of my high school bullies was a gamer bro, so that didn't help at all. But there is a cool side to the PS2 that I did not know about. It took me until 2009 to ask for the thing, because my sister's ex introduced me to some JRPGs. I've often played Crash Bash at a friend's house, so I also wanted some PS1 fun. ETNB? Whoa, is that you? Have you come to free me on PS2? Yes, Crash, because the same ex lent me Crash too. Too bad I'm not really a fan of you compared to Sonic or Mario. Crash itself is a pretty goofy franchise, but no, there is a lot of goofier titles on PS1. I'd even say Crash is pretty safe compared to No One Can Stop Mr. Domino! No One Can Stop Mr. Domino is a title I discovered through Cadicarus. I also enjoyed it more than him. It is sort of a racing puzzle game where you have to place dominoes to create a chain reaction to trigger events. After the very surprisingly epic opening, you'd be baffled by the amounts of goofy moments that occur, including Grandpa's super form or a perverted teddy bear. The variety of silly events, colorful locations, kids games music, or CG cutscenes, etc. I'd say the CG itself is hilarious, aging both like milk and wine. It's mostly due to the dominant dominoes looking very expressive as well as the dreamlike backgrounds, this is the PS1 pushed to its limits, creating a goofy dream you'd probably see on r/Thomas the Plank Engine, and I'm all here for it. I want to see the title re-released someday or play the Wii sequel I can find in my city. Honestly, I kinda find Darding's goofiness very fascinating because their library is insane. I'd say as they thrive the most on PS1 due to how cheap it is to make a game on that console. Even when creating games for existing properties like Sword Art Online or Dragon Ball, they try something new. I do not personally think it always works, so it's the thought that counts. Until 2022, I'd say their most mainstream franchise was Densha Dego, a train simulator. A Japan-only train simulator. Yep, that's how niche they were. Until Project Triangle Strategy sold almost 1 million units, or just Gundam. Also, the Dragon Quest remakes and Wonder Boy. What is going on, Ardink? Can you explain your cave person simulator? I can't. I haven't played this one. I've only seen some gameplay, as well as one of the most trans things in gaming. I wish I was an anime girl. Give me HRT, and I'll do some voice training, I promise. Other Goofy Ahh titles on the consoles include Guardian's Crusade, a JRPG for casuals that has a virtual pet element with some Goofy Ahh attack. The way the game is written also impressed me, as after all, this one is called Night and Baby in Japan. Developed by Tamsoft of Seran Kagura fame. The baby also appears as a cameo in Cyber Dimension Neptunia, so the baby's legacy will forever be remembered. The Neverhood, for a DreamWorks game, looks as silly as any other point-and-click from this era. Its sequel, as a 2D platformer, manages to look even more Goofy Ahh, especially in the cutscenes. Unfortunately, this game can push me to the limit since I suck at it. It's especially insane to play a side-scroller that was made by DreamWorks. I kinda wish they published more original games these days, but that is what we get. Goofy Ahh music, Goofy Ahh stop motion visuals, as well as Goofy Ahh gameplay that's about as rage-worthy as anything from the NES era. But what about Disney? Does Disney have any Goofy games? Well, most of the games from Disney are fine, and they're not too out there. Yet the only really Goofy game they published is a Goofy game. Literally. I haven't played this one, but it looks like it has some Resident Evil camera angles. Resident Evil. I played Puzzle Crossroad Crisis, a low-budget PS1 game about helping a chick cross the world. The janky movement of the chick, combined with the very colorful presentation and the simple story, just make this one a very Goofy Ahh experience all around. I find the colorful, childlike drawings to look charming even on the PS1. It's just the combination of all of these aspects that give Crossroad Crisis a very Goofy Ahh edge. I'm sure the multiplayer will create even more moments like that, but I don't have anyone to play against. That's probably it for the PS1 titles I can think about, aside from Incredible Crisis. Yep, we're not heading to the PS2 yet. Aside from Parappa and Lammy, the PS1 also had Incredible Crisis, what is essentially an absurd family-friendly comedy with a ska soundtrack. It's less of a laugh-out-loud comedy and more of a goofy, look at this comedy. The PS1's graphics could be seen as limitations, but even the polygonal designs are iconic enough to stand the test of time more than a lot of PS1 titles. I need to make a video about PS1 games or N64 games or DS games that have aged well someday. Incredible Crisis also does the multiple perspectives of one event here as well as in any other media, like Sonic Adventure.
Oh no!
It explains well the absurdity of some of its plot points in the most goofy way possible. That while the gameplay is a collection of minigames with various ideas, it's silly enough to use a ska soundtrack at least, like in the Digimon movie. There also were some games that were ported from the Sega CD, because the Sega CD era was kinda insane in the West. Japan had plenty of intriguing Sega CD games, while the West had a ton of games that relied on full motion videos. Oftentimes these titles had live actors with barely existent gameplay that asked you to interact rather than to play entirely. These are B-movies thanks to the often over-the-top acting, so I'm always sort of happy to play them. Very goofy energy that could only work due to the advancements in technology. Most recent FMV games are less cheesy, so if you want to see the style used to its full potential, modern gaming has you covered. I know people talk smack about modern gaming every 15 seconds on YouTube, but I think some aspects feel more convenient. I love cheesy demo disc intros that have too much effort put into it, as well as the menus, but it's a bit more convenient to just download the demo. The E3 demo discs exist to fill that void whenever they're released. The imports and behind-the-scenes sections are either available via Pirates of the Caribbean on the GBA or YouTube. I still enjoy collecting and exploring these goofy discs filled with way too much CG. Oh god, I even found this early flash animation that reminds me of the Digimon movie music video. We're the kids. We're the kids. We're the kids in America. Flash animation itself has a goofy energy. The PC itself had many silly, ridiculous games, including Cookies Puzzle that I can show on YouTube. Now though, we need to focus on the PS2. The Simple series is a series of low-budget games made for the PS1 at first, before expanding to other consoles, including the PS2. Not many people talk about these titles as they'll be immediately called shovelware, which is a bad no-no word in gaming. So any and all possible discussion of the title is outed so that we can get back to the old good, new bad discussion of the week. I'm so tired, I'm going back to Neo-Cities for a bit. That aside, one of the games from the Simple series is called The Adventures of Darwin. Yes, it is one of the only Simple series games from the PS2 era that came to our shores, so I suppose we're lucky. This title, however, is a very goofy game about evolving monkeys into, I don't know, cave people by collecting objects, kinda like Pikmin, but so much stupider. Not only the objects are ridiculous, but the stupid noises and the language that evolves the further you get into the game just adds more details to these simpler adventures. So yes, Pikmin on a budget, meaning meaning no time limits. Also, unlike Pikmin, it doesn't cost the Pikmin task. I miss Player's Choice, Tails. I miss it. The launch of the PS2, as well as its disgusting blue discs that my new PS2 can't play, meant more power. One of these titles was Hokage Shadow King, a JRPG about a kid getting possessed by a a genie, which means he has to beat other Shadowkins to become the ultimate Demon King. Yes, it sounds like an anime, but no. The game has a very Tim Burton-esque art style, making it look like a darker fairy tale. While the combat fits the standards established by other JRPGs, it is the rest of the title that I find very goofy. The story goes all over the place since you're an anti-hero, with the writing having plenty of ridiculous moments, again reminding me of a numerous darker fairy tale. The worst part being that when you just get used to the silly shenanigans, the plot pulls a 180-degree turn, and you're thrust into a very horrifying moment that guarantees this game's T rating. I would compare that to Klonoa's ending. If you know, you know. If you don't, play Klonoa, it's available everywhere. So as much as I enjoy how Goofy Ahh the game is, there is a deeper story happening later. No, it's not why the game is rated T. It's rated T because it mentions blood. Spooky blood. I love blood, lads, since it has blood. So that's kind of why I think Hokage Shadow King deserves to be called the Goofy Ahh game. Another game I would consider for this video has to be the PS2 Ape Escape games. The thing is that after the first title, the Ape Escape franchise took a turn. People Saru 2001 is a low-budget spin-off about Spike using a vacuum cleaner to suck the monkey's pants. So the concept is so goofy, I understand why this was sold at a McDonald's. Then Ape Escape 2 happened.
Who did that?
Despite this one being my least favorite title of the franchise, I cannot deny its goofiness. Not only are the cutscenes filled with awkward pauses or Goofy Ahh moments, but it also has kinda terrible looking CGI. The CGI pleases me a lot less than Mr. Domino or even Klonoa. I could also mention Malice Doll because Doll, damn! Either way, that coupled with the dialogue-heavy humor that relies on the limited mouth movements make the title even goofier. I think Goofy Ahh fits it well. Fortunately, the monkey's disguises make up for that, as well as the 2 new gadgets. Gambling is also a part of this game, as you can collect pages of the Monkey Fables using a gosh darn gashapon machine. Most Monkey Fables are just Goofy Ahh versions of popular fairy tales. That makes up for the rest of Ape Escape 2 in my opinion. Ape Escape Pumpkin Prime seems like a goofy game at first. It also nails the futuristic aesthetics better than Sonic Riders in my opinion. But I think the tone-deaf writing that doesn't know whether it's a cool shonen anime or a Looney Tunes comedy, as well as the limitations of the console just not working, just ruins Sonic Riders in my opinion, but I digress. Well, it has some goofy humor. Ape Escape Pumpkin Prime story knows when to get serious, to the point where some of these cutscenes will haunt me forever. Like, legit, Helga's cutscenes will forever gives me goosebumps. It's also one of the most lore-heavy Ape Escape games, which I discussed in this video. Ape Escape Academy, not to mention the free-to-play RPG Ape Quest, expanded on the silliness using the absurdity of the minigames to create something more crazy. I'd also mention that the monkeys became mascots, sort of like the rabbits or the minions, but the people monkeys make me laugh harder, especially in the goofiest game of the franchise, Ape Escape 3. Ape Escape 3 adds 8 costumes instead of 2 new gadgets. It's about monkeys invading television, meaning that we not only get some of the most varied/insane level design in the franchise, but the game's entire atmosphere can be described as Goofy Ahh. The monkeys are integrated very well in these parodies to the point where their placement feels surprisingly natural. Ape Escape 2 add that aspect too, it's just that Ape Escape 3 decides to let you film the monkeys. Either you film them getting pre-made movies using very goofy TikTok dry humor before TikTok or even Vine was a thing, or you create your own movies in that similar style for the low price of 300,000 megabytes on your PS2 memory card. I also think that the absurd cutscenes based on dialogue humor are much more vibrant. Everything goes so hard all of the time. It's ridiculous. After a certain point, I feel like the writers binged Ed and Eddie or Super Mario Kun manga and wrote in so much garbage Sony was like, whoa, calm down. They didn't like the weird trend stereotype, so they pretended that Monkey Yellow was a cis girl, so that the monkey could hit on a little boy. The Metal Gear Solid minigame present here is basically a Goofy Ahh version of Metal Gear. I don't know, just pull a skull emoji there! Other ridiculous titles for the console were released, one of them being Finny the Fish and the Seven Waters. This is a cute, child-friendly game about a fish who has to save the world by clearing quests as well as eating a bunch of other creatures to survive. The voice acting has a bunch of these random pauses since the text could not fit on the text box, which was commonplace practice at the time. The movements of Finny himself also are realistic yet cartoony at the same time, making for some of the slimiest, dirtiest video game movement ever. The great frame rate makes it look even more disgusting, while the hunger system asks you to hurry up, so Finny goes even faster, fast enough to look goofy anyways. The NPC dialogue full of odd characters just add to how insane this game is. At the very least, it's pretty short. I was surprised to not find any boss fights, just a simple concept exploited to its almost full potential. Finny will never leave my head, the same way I will never stop singing Umbrella whenever I see the Chumbrella or Barbie Girl. Unison is a story-based rhythm game where dancing is prohibited in the future despite music still being a thing, so Trill, Sela, and Chill, the Powerpuff, are going to riot in the streets, yelling ACAB and throwing bricks at they just dance on illegal broadcast rated E for everyone. Like Parappa, it has the Goofy Ahh cutscenes voice acting, but it has more than 8 songs. You use both joysticks to dance, learning the choreography first while playing the song later. Yes, it has the cheesiest pop choreographies, and I am here for it. The entire game oozes with charm, becoming one with its limitations in the most shoujo anime way possible. Unison just has a few harder moments, especially when you're performing without using any on-screen cues. It feels like you're actually performing on stage. It's a very stressful time with a bit of a stressful cutscene. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so the video is almost over because there are a bit more games than I expected. I maybe will end this one on the Wii while working on a sequel later. The aspect of the Wii critics and gamers ignore is that the Wii was the Wild West of gaming the same way the PS2 or even PS1 was. WiiWare, the service for downloadable Wii software, was also full of insane titles like Tomenasaner, a one-button action game about you controlling an office worker that's 2-in-1 video, going through obstacles while pressing A at the right time to trigger the funny event. Funny commentary scrolls at the top and at the bottom of the screen. It's too bad I'm too focused on the game to read this fast-ass text. A lot of these events can be classified as goofy, absurd humor, and you know what? For a shorter Wii game, I think it's goofy enough. Either way, where can you get the game nowadays? I don't know. Ask Mr. Krabs. Sponge boy me Bob, I'm a pirate. Either way, that's all for the video. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and bye!